I heard a pretty crazy stat the other day from my friend. 1 in 7 men under 30 in America have 0 friends. 1 in 4 men in America have no friends that they would consider to be best friends. And when I think about that, it's probably similar in Canada, and it's probably similar in England and Australia and a lot of these other places, maybe Ireland as well. But I think that's such a wild stat. 1 in 7 people under 30 don't have any friends, and 1 in 4 don't have any best friends. You would think that in this new social media age that we're in, where everybody's more connected than ever, which is something you constantly hear from everybody, is social media is such a blessing because you're more connected than ever. Why is it then, if that is the case, if social media is bringing people together and making everybody easier to get in contact with, why is it that men, in particular under 30, don't have any friends or don't have any close friends? Help me understand that. And then you start thinking, so that's my question. So what I'm going to talk about here today is I'm going to talk about, what role, if any, does social media play in that? And also the fact that people don't go out as much and people are staying in much more to watch things like Netflix and play on the computer and to do things that are much more isolating. Now a lot of people are working from home and you're not going out to these places where people gather. And as you get older, it's harder to make friends. So let me ask you a question. If you've got 500 friends on Facebook, let's say you've got 500 friends on Facebook, is that more valuable than having 5 close friends that you actually talk to and hang out with and spend time with? Like, is Facebook a good representation of your actual social network? Or is it more of a representation of your ego? And look at how many friends I got, even though I don't see any of them ever. Even though I don't really talk to them about anything ever, the only time I really interact with them is when they have a birthday. I send them a happy birthday, bud. Or if something good happens in their family, they had a kid. Oh, congratulations on the new kid, right? Or they have a really nice looking meal. Oh, that meal looks great. Like, is that building friendships? You know what I'm saying? And then you look and people say, well, Matt, I live in another country now. My friends that I grew up with are all back in where I'm from. Well, let me tell you from my personal experience. I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan. I live in Toronto. I've lived in Toronto for the last 24 years, almost 25 years. And I don't have social media. The only time I see my friends, really, is when they come to visit me in Toronto, or when I come back to Regina to visit my family and visit them and we get together. And I find that just by doing that, by just getting together, even if it's once every 2 years, once every 3 years, however many times it is, just that act of getting together and spending time with each other and talking about and catching up on what we've actually been up to and catching up on and talking about old stories that we've had and different things that we've done, I find that infinitely more valuable than just sending a couple messages on text or a couple of messages on Facebook or a couple messages on WhatsApp. I find it to be much more valuable to do that. So as I said, I moved away from Regina to Toronto. Now, rather than sitting there and checking on Facebook and keeping up on Facebook with all my old friends, who I still have friends with, I find that my life's gone through many iterations. It's gone through many, every kind of part of my life, I've been able to make close friends. So I do think that, so what I did when I got to Toronto was I made new friends. Rather than just sit there and watch what all my old friends were up to, I went out, I went to work. I worked at the bank at the time, and I made friends through the bank. And then by making friends through the bank, I met other people through that. So let's say I make a friend from the bank, I meet their friends, and then through that, I would create a whole new crew of friends. So my life's gone through, my friend groups have gone through many iterations, and I keep in contact with not all of the friends from all these different iterations, but the best friends I made from when I first, so basically I think about when I was younger, you have your friends from I had my friends from elementary school who I'm still in touch with, my friends from high school who I'm still in touch with. And then I left and I went to Toronto and I started my career in the bank, and I made some friends there who I'm still in contact with, and so on. And then I left that, and then I stayed in Toronto, and through making these different friends, I was able to create a whole new friend group. And I find that if you're far away in another country, I think it's or in another place. Like, for example, it takes 30 hours to drive to Regina or drive to Toronto from Regina, or you have to book a 3-hour flight. So you have to really plan if you're going to come visit, or if you're going to come to Toronto, you know? But rather than just sit there and just check Facebook and send messages and see what everybody's up to on Facebook, I do think that it's infinitely more valuable just to do your best to make a new group of friends. The other piece is, I don't know if people are really going out as much. You know, think about it. What are the spaces we occupy the most? Well, number one, home, right? You probably spend the most time at home. Number two, well, it used to be the office, right? And then number three, the third space. This is where you would do your activities, where you would go to the bar and go to the pub, and you would meet up with your friends and you'd watch a football match, whether that be American football or English football, or you would baseball, or you would just have a few drinks and just catch up on what's going on in each other's lives. You know, that stuff like that. Or you would go and you would work. A lot of my friends work out together at the gym, so they get together and they go to the gym and they work out together. But even when you go to the gym, a lot of people, they have their earplugs in. You know what I mean? Everywhere you go, people seem to have their earplugs in. When I say earplugs, I mean like their what do you call them? What do you call iPad? What do you call these things? Earpods, right? Where they're just listening to music, or they're listening to stuff, and they're not even paying attention to the people around them. You know, where it's just like everywhere you go, people just are constantly disconnected from what's actually happening to them. So they're always constantly dialed into, whether it be a podcast or listening to music, or just completely ignoring the outside world. And just the more people get dialed in, the more people, and when I'm talking about social media, but even the cell phones, I guess you could say too, the cell phones that people bring around with them, always connected to the internet, people would rather plug into the cell phone and listen to what the cell phone has to offer while they're doing activities, versus unplugging the cell phone and being receptive and trying to connect and meet people. You know, even when you go to the bar nowadays, if you go to the bar, people are literally sitting there on their cell phones. And rather than talk to the person beside you, back in the day when we go to the bar, you would sit down at a bar, we would sit at the bar, have a beer, somebody would sit beside you, and you would just start talking to strangers. And it was a place where you'd go and you would just have a casual drink and talk about what's going on in the city, what's going on, or just in general. And you would meet new people, create new friendships. But nowadays, most people I see when we go into the bar, they're just like this, just staring at their phone. And it's like, there's all these people around, and people would rather be dialed into what's going on in their phone, dialed into Instagram, dialed into, not YouTube. People aren't usually watching YouTube videos when they're at the bar. I know a lot of people say, but Matt, you're social media, you're using YouTube, and YouTube's a social media. Yeah, I get it. But is social media the one that people are you saying to your friend that you grew up with, jump on my, maybe you might, but like jump on my YouTube account, follow me on YouTube? Sure, I guess I have done that, and now I think about it. But that's not your main way to connect. Your main way to connect is going to be on like a Facebook or an Instagram. Like, that's the reality, or Snapchat, or whatever the hell you guys do these days. But I just find it ironic that in a world where we're so connected, where it's so easy for us to see what's going on in each other's lives, that people are lonelier than ever. You know, men aren't making friends like they used to. Like, let me ask all the people that are watching this. People in England, people in America, people in Canada, people in Australia. When you were growing up, how did you make friends? Did you make friends by just going out into the wild and, doing things and through doing just regular or just random activities or doing things that you love, whether that be playing sports or playing baseball or playing football or playing rugby or playing hockey, whatever the case may be, did you go out in the wild and meet people? Is that what you did? And then when you met people through sport or whatever you were doing, could be hunting, could be many different things that you're doing. And then did you find people things you had in common with people, and then bam, there you go. Now you created a friend, and now you're making plans to hang out, and now, you're doing things together. That's my question to you. So how did you do that back in the day? Or do you find it even easier nowadays, now that you have social media? Do you find that it's much easier to make friends? Like, how many friends have you made that aren't acquaintances on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram? Like, you meet somebody out. Don't get me wrong, you meet somebody out in the wild. You say, okay, get on my Instagram, or get on, put them on Instagram. Usually is what it is. And then do you ever really see that person ever again? For the most part, the answer is no. So when you look at people with thousands of followers on Instagram and with thousands of friends on Facebook, the reality is these people aren't really friends. They're acquaintances at the best. And you don't really have, for the most part, a deep connection with the majority of these people. You're not taking time to spend with them. So I just find it funny how, and I get a lot of people commenting on, well, social media this, social media. If it wasn't for social media, I couldn't keep in contact with my dad or my mom because I'm living in another place. And it's like, just put a phone call in or plan a trip every year. That's what I do. How do I connect with my dad? I don't really talk to my dad a lot during the year. I don't text him. I might call him if something happens, but I plan a fishing trip every year with my dad. Every year, me and my dad, we go on a fishing trip together. And then I spend time with my family when I'm here and my friends when I'm here in Regina. But that's it. It's an annual fishing trip that I do. And I go every year with my dad, and I go with my uncle, I go with my auntie, go with my little brother, comes sometimes. And that's what I do. And that's how I stay in contact with my dad. Yes, I may only get to spend a couple weeks a year with him. And then usually I'll come home at Christmas as well. But I would never trade those 3 weeks a year for anything. And I always look forward to coming here to do that. And my dad looks forward to me coming, and my family looks forward to me coming, and my friends, you name it. And that's what I do. And then that's how I stay in touch. And I just think that, the fact that people think that social media is such a bringer together of people, when I would actually argue that social media doesn't bring people together. If anything, social media takes people apart. It tears friendships apart. And it makes people not even be, because especially if you know people and you see that what they're posting online, you realize that the inauthenticity is rampant on social media, especially like Instagrams and Facebooks. So I just think that it's interesting that 1 in 7 men in America, and you could probably say Canada and Australia and England, have no friends that are under 30. Like, that is crazy to me. 1 in 4 people in America, in Australia, in Canada, in England, have nobody they would consider a best friend. I couldn't even imagine that. Like, you would have to really go out of your way to not have any friends, to not have a best friend. I'm not saying you need to have 10 best friends. I'm saying you might have, 2 to 5 really good friends. You know what I mean? If you're lucky. And maybe you have 1 really good friend or 2 really good friends. But, these are people that you can rely on, that no matter what happens in your life, you'll be able to call them up and they'll be there for you. But I just can't imagine 1 in 7 men don't have a person they can call to go for a beer, or to go to a concert together, or to go hunting, or to go fishing, or go to a football match. 1 in 4 people, men, don't have a really close friendship with another person. Like, how is that? Like, that blows my mind. So it blows my mind. So how is this? And listen, I'm just confused as to how we could be so connected through social media and through the internet that people don't have friends or close friends. It blows my mind. I don't understand that. And really what it comes down to is, believe it or not, I just think that people have just relied so much on the internet and on their cell phones and on social media that they've forgotten that to have close friends and to make friends, you have to spend time with people. You don't have to spend all your time with people, but you need to spend some, face-to-face time with people, doing things together, creating shared experiences that you can reflect on later on in life. That shared experience, that bond you make through shared experience is what keeps you coming back and wanting more. When I go fishing with my dad and I go fishing with my uncle and I spend time with my auntie while she's there, and we're catching monster fish, we're chasing monsters and we're catching fish. I love that when my uncle catches a 65 centimeter fish, or my dad catches, I guess that would be like a 28-inch fish, or my dad catches a 26-inch fish, or I catch a 25-inch fish. A walleye, you know what I mean? Pulling that big bastard in the boat, the feeling of it, and just being excited to watch your dad catch one of the biggest fish he's ever caught in his life, or watch your uncle catching monster fish, being on the water together, and just experiencing the calmness of the lake, and just hanging out, and just looking at the sun and looking at the clouds, Let me just do this. You know what I mean? And just spending that time out in nature together, whatever. I just can't believe people don't have an experience like that. And it's unfortunate for the younger generation. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of reasons for this. And I think parents, let's be real, parents have something to do with it. A lot of the parents just, because of being busy and having lots to do, they put, tablets and they put phones in the kids' hands. And the kid spends most of their time on the phone or on their tablet or on the computer versus out making close friends, or out making friends that you can, when you turn 30 years old, you can say, remember when we were 13 years old and we did this together, or we met this person and we went on this epic adventure together. You don't have that, right? Part of building close friends is that experience that you have. And part of building bonds is by doing that. So do I think that there is a friendship epidemic or a male loneliness epidemic out there? I think to an extent there is. Now I think to make this clear, there's a difference between loneliness and aloneness. I like spending time alone. You know what I mean? Where I can contemplate and think and read and spend time by myself. I love it. I'm not talking about you need to be clingy and always have somebody around you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying about loneliness is meaning that at no point, if something's going on in your life, you don't have anybody that you can call. Nobody can relate to you. Nobody has any idea what kind of a person you are because you haven't really got to know anybody. And through not having that person to be able to call them and to be, vulnerable with, and to tell the truth as to what's going on in your life, and to share your good or bad experience, somebody just to talk to, because it's important that you have people that you can actually talk to about what's going on in your life and seek advice and find out if they've gone through anything like you've gone through. A lot of friends of mine are going through divorce right now, and family members and stuff like that, and it's important to have that connection with friends that can actually help you out. And it doesn't even have to be close friends. You can make friends by joining a gym. Like my friend also is a jiu-jitsu trainer, and he loves jiu-jitsu, and most of his friends come from that world where they what they call roll together, and they practice MMA together, in particular jiu-jitsu, but he knows kickboxing and everything. But just getting together, the feeling of community, I think is something that's important. And I'm not necessarily blaming social media, but I do think that social media and can be an excuse for people not to do things. Oh, they'd rather just, scroll the phone. They'd rather scroll Instagram. They'd rather scroll Twitter. They'd rather check on what's going on Facebook, and rather than actually go out with somebody and have something to eat, having dinner. I just had dinner with my buddy, KW. We haven't seen each other in years. And I had no idea what was going on in his life because I don't have social media. I found out he's got a new job. I found out that his son's a really good hockey player and baseball player. I found out so much stuff about him. And just sitting there connecting with him for 3 hours while we're having a beer and eating some pizza. We went to Houston Pizza in Regina, which is fantastic. I found out a lot was going on in his life. And I found out I got updates on his brother. I got updates on his sister, on his mom and his dad, on his kids, on his wife, and it doesn't take long. Even if you put 3 hours, even if just by getting together and making that time, that means so much because you have so much shared experience, because you have so much time put into this friendship and things you've done. So, it doesn't matter if you haven't seen each other in 3 years. And quite frankly, Facebook message or WhatsApp message or text message is never the same as getting together in person. So that's just that, that friendship's always going to be, I know that I'm 44 right now. We've been friends since probably grade 6. So what would that be? Maybe 31 years. Am I right? 32 years. And when I'm 60, if we're both still alive and I come back to visit Regina, we're going to be friends still. Well, I'm still going to meet up with him. We're going to go for a pizza. We're going to go for a beer, whatever. And we're still going to be friends 30 years from now. How many people out there can say that they're going to have a friend 30 years from now? I know I'm going to have many. And that's not me bragging. That's just because I understand what it takes to build a friendship. So, I wanted to bring this topic up because I think it's an important topic. And I know I'm talking a lot about the younger people out there, but if there is any younger people watching this video, what are some of the reasons why we're not able to make friends like we used to in the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s and even in the 2000s? What's going on? Is social media helping or hurting your chances at creating lifelong friends or creating close friendships? Am I completely off here? You tell me. I know a lot of people like to tell me, well, whatever. Say whatever you want in the comments. It's totally fine. But let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think that there is, for the younger generation? Yes, this reminded me of one last thing about friendship epidemic and kind of men being lonely. I do think the rise of dating apps as well. The rise of dating apps has also really contributed to the men being lonely, because it seems like most people want to meet on dating apps versus meeting out in the wild. Back in the day, when you wanted to meet somebody, you had to go out in the wild. You had to go to the bar, you had to go to a picnic, or you had to go to a gathering of some sort. You had to go to the fair, you had to go to a dance. Remember sock ups? Let's go to the sock up. Or you had to go places, or you had to, you'd meet somebody. She was working at a store, she's working at, and you would talk to her and you'd get to know her by just going in and buying stuff from a local store. But you'd have to go out in the wild. That was one of the other things is when we were younger, when this is how I meet girls anyways. I've never used a dating app and I never will. But I do think that these dating apps kind of fixate, it seems like girls always go for the same types of dudes. So all these girls are going for one type of person. Meanwhile, there's all these dudes that are out there, all these men, maybe feeling a little bit left out, and it's probably hurting people's confidence. I think that dating apps and stuff like that does nothing but hurt most people's confidence, most men's confidence. And I just think that get rid of your dating apps. Number one, forget it. Any girl that's got a dating app, I would think twice about even dating her. No offense, but it's finding people that aren't, it's probably impossible to do that, but But I know lots of people have met their wives and met their girlfriends and met their husbands on social media or on dating apps. So I get that does happen. But most of the time it's just hookup culture. Most of the time it's wham bam, thank you ma'am. Let's be real, that's what it is. You know that's the truth. I don't care what anybody says, that's the truth. It's wham bam, thank you ma'am. And then people get and that's it. It's not about building an actual relationship. So I do think that the rise of the dating apps has really hurt the male and the male, female kind of ability to connect. So like I do think that's also something that's happened. That's also considered social media. Although I do not think it's social at all. I think it's more or less tears more people down than it builds people up. But when you take the combination of Facebook and Instagram and the dating apps and WhatsApp and digital connection, and you put all that together, according to the world today, that's supposed to make we're supposed to be the most connected people we've ever been, ever. And the reality is, we're the most disconnected we've ever been. People have never been more disconnected on actually getting to know each other, on how they view the world, on their world perspectives. Because now it's either you're with me or you're against me. There's no in between anymore. And people are more divided than ever. And I think about, well, what's changed? What's changed in the last 30? What's changed in the last 20 years? What's the major change that's come into effect that's been helping with the great disconnecting? And it's the rise of social media, or the rise of anti-social media, because there's nothing social about social media. It keeps you at home, it keeps you isolated, it keeps you in echo chambers, it keeps you thinking about whatever you want to think about. It doesn't, the algorithm feeds your bias. And a lot of people don't know that. The algorithm's working against you. The algorithm's not trying to help bring you together. The algorithm's trying to take your attention by any means necessary. And what's the best way to keep people's attention? Outrage. So what do? They give you all the stuff that's going to make you upset and anger, because you're going to spend way more time. You're going to spend way more time on engaging in things that you dislike and things that you can't stand versus things that you agree with. What people don't understand is, with social media, it's about engagement, and people that actually have things in common and agree with things, they pretty much don't engage on social media. They don't spend a lot of their time and attention on social media. So the best way to keep people's attention is to make sure that they stay outraged. So, that's another thing to think about. So let me ask you, so when you think about that, ask yourself that question. Is social media there to be social and to bring us together? Is that its purpose? Or is there a more sinister purpose to social media? Is there something else going on here that maybe we don't quite know about, or we're just starting to pick up on now? Because it seems strange to me that we're in the most connected world. We can so easily contact each other. We can so easily show each other videos and send each other's messages. But here we are in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. Here we are where people can't even make friends, where people don't even have a close friend. So let me know. Tell me in the comments. I'm Matt Ross. I'm the Lone Wolf.